All right. Hi, everybody. Um, Here we go. So today's AMA, want everyone to know just to want to just check in, see how everyone's doing. Let me know how you're doing in the comments. As I'm going, I know we had an AMA on Friday, but I think that was a special case because we had Tristan, my teacher, and some viewers as well. Um, in location, or I was in the Squinting Rabbit studio filming with Tristan. So we got to do a really nice little AMA with him. And so today, what I was going to do is something that was want to do, like I said before, a little check in with everybody. So let me know how you're doing. Um, Also, it was requested that we start going through the Zettel and read some of the Zettel and then talk about the contents. In addition to that, I also have like a side little piece, little thing to talk about that regards practice. That we'll get to later. Um, yeah, so what we're going to do first is do a little check-in. Want to make sure everyone's doing okay, feeling okay, and I also want to give you a little quick update about like in-person classes and things. I posted a little, made a little blog post and a little video and blog post about my response to our last class or their in-person class. I think it went pretty all right. What I want to do is again, I want to be able to get class out to people, but I also really want to be safe. One of my big concerns right now is that there is a push overall, at least here in the United States, especially here in New York, to uh, um, really open up the city. And I think that people have economic concerns. The city is only really concerned with economic concerns that they're placing above sometimes I think the health and welfare of the people, which I have to be concerned about with all of you. Um, I will. I'm not sure if people have a link. Okay, let me just copy and paste this out. All right. Where was I? Oh yeah. So anyway, the in-person class went great. Everyone was socially distant, and um, everyone put masks on, which was great. Um, you know, but in general, so what I would like to do is I want to have at least a week between classes. Kind of gives people enough time to figure out how they're doing in between classes. Additionally, as I mentioned before, one of the things I'm also working on, I know there are folks who cannot make it up to Harlem, and though especially because of public transit or because a variety of reasons. So I'm working with some folks to set up another group, kind of a little out in Brooklyn and what I was hoping to do is have once a month, we're going to have kind of a group meetup that is for people who are mostly working or teaching in the other, or say guide leaders in the other, as I've been calling them, the boroughs. Um, um, and I will be able to transmit, teach them class and work with them and transmit materials that we'll be using in our classes. I'm very, very excited. I finished a bunch of the curriculum stuff for a number of classes that are coming up the next few weeks, actually. And I really look forward to doing more in-person classes. There were some technology bugs. There are some issues with the technology that we're still working on, um, and a lot of that comes from um, just like the location we're using did not have great Wi-Fi or cell phone coverage, cell tower coverage. So one of the things we'll be doing is recording class and then airing it later for people. What I would like to make sure to do is also have extra classes, something to stream live or something that will go live for you during that period, so that you can so that you have something to kind of play along with during the normal time. That's something that I'll be working out in the next couple weeks. Uh, Isolation time is weird. Um, I'm working on getting myself more into a groove for this materials and stuff, as I'm also still looking for work, etc. So yeah, things went really well. I would like to continue it. Um, um, and I want to continue it. And also, in doing so, I want to make sure we're doing it in a safe way for everybody. So that being said, what I want to do is kind of dive. It's going to be, unless there are pressing questions, it'll probably be relatively short. I wanted to just read a little bit from the Zettel, of course, the You de Live version. I have the new various translations from Stephen Chaney, which I look forward to reading. Um, it's a really nice book. I will hop in there. I've not had time. I've been really, really busy, both on working on a curriculum, the curriculum for all of y'all, the Messer curriculum, which is staying relatively the same, but I think that we're still working some stuff out. And that's coming along great, and I look forward to doing some more Messer content. And I've been working with Tristan, as well as some other folks, to have some new and exciting squinting rabbit material for people. I actually got to spend a few days up there in Poughkeepsie training with Tristan directly. It is always great to be able to train with your teacher. I had about 10 hours of private one-on-one training time. That really helps me grow as someone who's helping just kind of spread HEMA amongst all of y'all. All right, so if there are no questions, I will just kind of hop in. So for those who are following along, in the You de Live book, it is page 99 and this on the first edition. I believe the second edition is the same, but don't quote me on it. Just make sure I'm not missing anything in the longsword channel. Whoops, that's in. This, I accidentally posted something in the pets. How silly of me. Sorry, just checking the Discord, making sure everyone's up to date. Anyway, I think anyone who's going to be here is here. Again, we had AMA last Friday. People are probably not with it today. Anyway, before and after, these two things are the origin of all art. Weaken strong and notice the word indes too. Then you will learn to work and defend artfully. If you are startled easily, no fencing shall you learn. Oh, sorry. No fencing shall you shall ever learn. So that's a couple bit of tips and tricks and a little bit of judgerson from our friend Mr. Lichtenauer. This means that you shall hear and understand the two things first of all, which are the before and the after, weak and strong. It's really four things, so the two things. And the word indes. So 5 things. First, you got to learn 2 things, and then actually there are 4. No, wait, there's 5. Since from these words derive the basis of all fencing. If you hear and understand almost of all not forget. Am I missing a word there? If you hear and understand, and most of all not forget about the word indes in all pieces that you do, then you surely are a good master of the sword, and may well teach princes and lords that they can persist with the rightful art of the sword in jest and in earnest. So, let's start by diving into the fact that actually I need my reading glasses. That'd be super helpful. That's why I'm struggling here. We've talked about parts, like all the parts and the actions of fencing. One of the things that is much more apparent in the Lekukner translation of this, but also is definitely, or the Lekukner text, but is most certainly interesting here, teach princes and lords, so the bourgeois, and I guess maybe petit bourgeois, that they can persist with the rightful art of the sword in jest and in earnest. So immediately, we're being told that everything in this book kind of has a twofold purpose. That there's things things are in here for play, jest, joking around with swords, which is something I highly encourage you never to do, and in earnest. So it makes me think, Is there, uh, something that uh, they're not kind of like so? Okay, so there's jest and an earn. So it would be nice if they labeled each play, right? If it was like, oh, this is for serious, or this is whatever. Anyway, thoughts, right? Item: when you preempt him with a strike or something else, so that he has to displace against you, then work indes skillfully before with the sword, or else with other pieces, and do not let him come any further to any further work. So, so this is the first part, the vor. The I'm actually no, I'm going to read all this and then go back and then talk about it. Um, when he preempts you with the strike so that you must displace him, then work indes skillfully in the displacement with the sword or elsewise. Thus you will bereave his before with the after. This means before. This means before and after. Item: now you shall most of all know weak and strong of the sword. So hear this: from the hilt up to the middle, that is the strong. From the middle up to the point is the weak. How you shall work towards the weak with the strong of the sword. That you will find written within hereafter. So let's unpack that a little bit. Um, I think what's interesting is I'm going to approach it with a little bit more of a esoteric kind of thing here. I think they're clearly talking about time and distance in a very abstract way, and I know that one of the criticisms of the KDF system is that there is not talk of time and place, or that kind of mensur, that measure. But I think this is where they're talking about it. Because if you look at these bits where they're talking about the vor, nach, and indes, they're just kind of trying to explain what that even means as a concept. Don't forget, this is written for people who are not used to putting, who might not be used to be putting educated words to temporality. Um, so there's that. Um, Additionally, um, I think we are talking about. Uh, so we've established 3 moments of time, right? Um, in which you're acting first, and then something happens, and you have to act within that time, or they're acting first, and then you have to respond to that action with other things. Which this, in my opinion, relates to the ansatz and the absatz and the nachreisen as parts, right? And I think that the relationship here is that they're saying, like, okay, um, they're kind of telling you when to act, um, and I think um, it is. Um, all right, if there are going to be side conversations going on in the chat, just know that I will not be able to respond to them until I'm done with this lecture part. So if there are questions, please put them in the side chat, um, and I will get to them when I'm through. So there's a relationship here in time. What there and other later texts, such as like George Silver, Palladini, a lot of Italian works talk a lot about when is the right time to attack, right? I think KDF talks about that in terms of um, giving demonstrations. I think the way that they're attempting to communicate it is different by giving examples of it. And those 3 times are: you act first, so ansetzen, or you act in response, like a counterattack to something, absetzen, or you have to act while your opponent, or you act after your opponent has done an action, right? Absetzen and indes kind of have a relationship going on there, in my opinion. And when you, because if you look at, say, like George Silver's time, um, um, so one of the things in, like, if you look at, like, when Silver tells you it's okay to attack, is that you are, um, uh, uh, you are to attack while they are doing nothing, which is before they are able to act. You are then asked to, you can attack when they attack, absetzen, right? The indes, in the moment of indes, which is a counterattack, I guess would be the closest modern thing. And you can attack after they've done an action, so like a parry riposte or nach and vor, um, or you can slip backwards and then attack after by dodging, by getting out of the way. I don't know why he makes such an encounter attack. Oh, not rising again. So it's kind of an interesting overlap, just expressed differently. And I think for me, that is very. I think it's very interesting how you see different European cultures at the time expressing very similar things, but in taking different roads to get to the same concept. Um, and then, so that's time. So again, you have time. When is okay to attack? When's the green light? Because the Zettel has already told us don't just parry. So you have to know. Fencers who only parry will eventually be struck for one reason or another, right? If you're only chasing the sword and just trying to parry, and it's a battle, and you're actually fencing, I guess. So what they're telling you to do, again, attack before when they are when their action, their unit, your opponent's indes, right, is empty, right? The Italians tempo, and because I think music has, I think we could do a very similar comparison to contemporary music, but like when their like tempo or their moment, the indes, is empty, and you are at a Zufekten being the point in which you can now attack. That's distance. It's a different thing. Um, um, but so if they're doing nothing, then you should take advantage of that nothing. Alternatively, if you are if they act, you can another time to attack is to take advantage of that moment, that index. Again, that index. Index is the responsive to the moment, right? So counterattack. They do something and you do something that offsets it. Or you can act after they act. They cut. So you parry, and then you must act in the new vor, creating a new vor. So now you act in the nach, and then you riposte in the index. And you riposte. So you've acted the after. Or you've shifted backwards. We've all done this drill at Tristan, where we take a little step back and then step back in, acting in the nach. So for me, if you take a look at this like little in the Vorrede, you take a look at this component, and then you look at the pieces of fencing later on. It creates this. It creates an element of time, right? And it lays out the tempo, how it wants to talk about the tempo, and then how to take advantage of those tempo, right? Now, secondly, we get to this item about the weak and strong of the sword, right? Most systems lay out how the weak and strong of the sword and the best way to use it, etc., etc. For me, it's a little bit of distance too, right? We get the idea that you get to kind of, depending on where you have to act a particular way, depending on where you fall on the sword. So while that might not be as say, also we're given the concept of Zufekten, right? When you come to the Zufekten, so we have kind of the Zufekten, which is the precipice of attack, right? In my opinion, Zufekten is that first distance, right? You're not in distance, because if you're in distance, you're already need to have done something. So Zufekten, in my opinion, is, in terms of silver and the way I normally talk about it, first distance. Yep. Attacking distance. I forget what the Italian term for it is. Um, but then, um, so we have anything outside of that kind of doesn't matter because you're out of distance. And then you have the Zufechten. It's the or the I would even call it the Abzug distance. I mean, Abzug is the removal, the retreat or the exit. Um, um, but you have this out of distance, and then you have the Zufechten, which is again that precipice between out of distance and in distance, the first distance, silver. Um, but then you have um, yeah, so like again, and then you have everything after that is either you are landing on the weak of the sword, the strong of the sword, or as they imply later, you're just kind of you're close and you're grappling. So though it doesn't lay it out, those contexts of distance are there. Um, so I think it's unfair in a lot of ways to say the Germans, early Germanic fencing didn't write down these things. I think a lot of it's inferred through both the Gemeinfechten materials, which is very, very fun to review, which is what a lot of our coursework is right now. Um, but also, I think it is inferred through what they're asking you to do. And you see things later on, and especially, say, in Jacob and Meyer material, where there's just loads and loads of terms and lists and very specific things. Because they're trying to put language, they're trying to name and language, put words to all these different concepts. So yeah, so that's my little spiel on time and space in KDF. I think it exists, I think it's here, and I think other works such as Silver and some of the Palladini things, working on learning more Palladini work, which is really, really fascinating. It's a form of rapier I can kind of get behind. It is very KDF-esque, which is I'll have more to report in the future. Yeah, so that's my little spiel on KDF and time and space. Um, um, yeah, so let's see. The question come up about the Ham Week logo on the banner. It's for the science videos. We have folks who've been kind of paying attention to Squinting Rabbit know that we've been for a long time wanting to do a series that ties science and swordplay. We have a number of people that we're working with right now about that, including Dr. Josh, which is up and coming. We are working on a pilot right now. We hope to have physicists and medical scientists and all sorts of fun people who went to school for science-related subjects, meeting with Tristan and talking about different sort of related topics. So that's in the works. We don't have a release, we don't have any release dates or any further information right now. But we, as mentioned, Dina mentioned in the comments here, we're Squinting Rabbit is kind of now that lockdown is a little looser. I'm able to travel to Poughkeepsie more. Yeah, we've been rebranding. We're kind of going back to our original, I think, design roots. We were trying to make things different and interesting, and I think for everyone's sanity, and also we were looking back at the stuff we originally created, and I really personally liked it, and I know Tristan's into it, and I think we're really anyone also might have seen we posted another video, like a little teaser video for a new series we're doing called Just the Tip, which is a series of tips and tricks for fencing and training. We actually have one coming up soon about thrusting mechanics. We shot our pilot episode. I spent the weekend with Tristan Lehrer, and we spent a number of hours, not just filming, but actually working out the series. And anyone who's done television production should know that it is a task. It is a process to brand the show. Made a lot of graphics, made a lot of bad graphics, but we also made a lot of good, fun stuff. And that's what's coming out right now. I think that I'm really excited to see all of it kind of roll out. And I think it has a really our original artist, Roxanne Palmer, who designed the Squinting Rabbit logo, is a good friend of mine, a really, really amazing artist, designed this logo for us a very long time ago now, back in, I don't even want to think when date-wise. but we've been kind of riffing with her design, and we commissioning a little bit more work to get some additional pieces made here and there, and I think we're following through with an aesthetic, like a kind of a um, internet comic aesthetic. I don't know that, or it was described to me by someone as it feels very '90s VHS. You know what? Uh, sure. I spent a lot of I experienced the '90s. Uh, sure, why not? um, I'm very excited about the things we're in production of, um, and these AMAs are all kind of part of not just a big part of it is also about keeping the spirit of Squinting Rabbit alive. This media thing, I would not be able to do these right now if not for the infrastructure that we'd kind of set up before. Um, so I'm glad to see that stuff. Uh, huh, I'm glad to see it all kind of playing out. Um, I know that Tristan is mostly features in Squinting Rabbit stuff. I'll be doing some Messer videos. Also, some Gemeinfectin materials will be starting to be posted. All of this will be up there as we're posting stuff from there. We'll be posting all of this. It'll be good fun. So yeah, yeah, production's great. And I know Dina's working on a series of uh, photos, which will be fun. We just have to get Lou and myself in the same place at the same time, and we're gonna do some good. We'll set some good scenes. Um, uh, yeah, and so today's format is also a little. I think going to be a little indicative of some of the AMAs going forward. It was, like I said before, very much requested that we read from the book, and then um, uh, uh, we talk about it. Um, um, talk about, and also I think what's going to be really fun is that. So I'm going to talk about the Zettel in both terms of kind of like the traditional understanding, but I also have a lot of tinfoil hat theories, what I call tinfoil hat and red string theories. Um, and also, like, I'm going to have this next little part too, um, which I just want to talk a little bit about practice. One of the things, there's a saying, and I forget where it comes from, that Tristan had brought up to me a long time ago, which is don't seek the wisdom of the ancients, but instead seek what they sought, which I think is important, especially when we're learning an art where we don't have, say, a direct lineage, right? I think it is very, very important to have the scholarly approach to the books to see how they were approaching fencing, but also to remember that they were looking for something, they were attempting to describe something that we might have better language for now. And I'm okay with kind of approaching HEMA in a more holistic way. And as many folks know, I also studied with Corey Winslow about noise Kunsteffekten, which is a kind of another attempt at refining the Kunsteffekten art and kind of redefining some things. And then also, I have a lot of my own thoughts and theories about how all this kind of fits together and how we should be approaching it and how we should be learning it. That comes from a variety of my studies and um, with my various teachers, from my various teachers, and my own understanding of it. And anyone who kind of is taking my Messer class knows that I have my own specific approach to reconstructing material, which which I think is great. We have a pretty established thing going, and I want to make sure we, in all disciplines, that we roll with it, but also explore. So that brings me to the idea of practice. So we've talked a lot in the past about, like, buzzwords have come up, like mindful practice, and that, like, people really got into that. It's great. I love it. I'm okay with buzzwords because it helps bring things to people. It helps people find things. But you can't have mindful practice without practice. And one of the ways that I think that working with my teachers in the last year or so, and including my Eastern sword art study, is uh, that I think has been an important reprogramming of my brain. And people who have read my blog post kind of know that about practice, know that when I got into HEMA, I had very little martial arts experience before. And so one of the things I had to learn how to do was learn how to study a martial art. And one of the things that I was unaware of was how much like an art, like actual like the art underlying part of it is important in terms of like how the study approach, um, the approach of study needs to be. Um, you have to read the text and you have to do the thing. Like you can study it. My background's in film and television and media arts, um, uh, mostly on a technical and creative level. In which, so when it comes to film, I was very lucky that at my film program in college, there wasn't just a production route and a criticism, like a kind of film theory and criticism route. Um, we were required as a production person. I was required to take all the film theory possible. Um, I think, and also it was really fun. I'm a huge cinephile nerd, film nerd, so that was really fun. But we had to learn about. We couldn't just learn the technical things like this. This is how you work a camera. This is a wide shot. This is a medium shot, a close up. This is how you work a camera. This is how you edit film. You have to cut it like this, and this is how you splice it together. And this is how you record audio, and cut audio, and splice it together, and sync it with picture. We also had to learn higher level theoretical critical thinking, right? I think the same applies with studying fencing, especially historical fencing. Um, I will say historical fencing, right? Um, I think that a lot of it has we have to both be learning the theoretical, but also the practical. There's quotes in various texts about like you cannot without the art. There is there is no practice and no practice without art, right? It's all interwoven. And so, if we think about it in terms again, or like music production or film production, we have to go practice. Both we have to study theory, and then we have to practice. And our practice a lot of times is ourselves. Um, and Dr. Josh brings up. It's interesting that says that it's interesting that you draw parallels to art. I draw parallels to science. I suppose we all make sense of the practice based on what we do, eh? I agree. I think we all have a lens in which we kind of need to approach things. Um, um, but yeah, and so I will say yes. I don't have a scientific background. Uh, I took some science classes in my liberal arts background, but I have a BA in film production. I have I took some intro classes, some survey classes in college, of which I did okay at. So I wouldn't even know really truly where to begin applying the scientific principles to this. So I'm glad we have people like Josh and others who have that background to help uh, make sure I don't lead astray, right? Um, uh, and I think that Dina's right. It's all about being a whole person. You have to have all of the practice and everything else on top of that. And like if you break down how we kind of do things, I think a lot of practice is maybe solo practice because the time that I spend, and this is kind of something from my personal experience. I found it was more useful, more productive for me when I am paying for time or just being able to spend time in a dojo or effectue um, uh, uh, it's paired partner work, right? Even if it's just me and the teacher, I have to be coming to class with something. Like there might be something like, oh, I'm learning a new technique. There might be a portion in which you are learning something, but it's also um, a process by which you are also there to get feedback from a teacher. So I kind of consider that um, rehearsal time. Like I consider class time rehearsal time, and um, then either be and then when it comes to like ranked tests or competitions or friend or in-house, but be the competition be like an in-house Gekken tournament or like I don't know. Uh, Flower Point or one of the many external like larger scale competitions. Those are kind of like the audition or the play, the audition or the play. Um, and so I guess where am I going with all this? A lot of this, I guess what I'm getting at is I want to encourage everyone to, even though times are weird, um, to take time to practice, even if it's not during this time slot. What I would love to be able to do, um, especially as more of the material, as we get people more into the material, what I would love for people to be able to do is say, hey, look, I've been practicing cut number 3, and I'm having these problems with cut number 3. And can we work on, I need help with this because I'm working on this kata, or this spiele, or this piece, and I'm having a problem with this. Let's workshop that. And it is why I've been kind of digging up a lot of these longsword drills, because they are something that you can memorize, that helps build muscle memory for simple things, but also allows us to say, hey, look, I'm doing cut 3 or cut 2, and let's say I need help with that leftover how. Can we workshop that a little bit? And I want to, and I know it's hard digitally, but especially as we start doing more in-person classes, I want to be more effectively helpful to everyone during that time as best I can to help work on those parts. Yeah? Um, and I want people to come to class with questions. Or I want to encourage you to come to class with questions and concerns about, like, oh, well, how does this piece kind of play in, or how does this, or I've been having a hard time with my hanging parry. Can we workshop my hanging parry? Because, like as I kind of mentioned a few times in the past few weeks, is that we mostly been studying the Mindfechten for a little while, the foundational fencing pieces, which are very important. And I think we all have a long, including myself, have a long way to go with really mastering them. That's a lifetime pursuit, right? But yeah, overall, I want to encourage people to think of time by yourself as practice time. Even if you can only practice for 15 minutes, half hour for the whole week leading up to something, right? Be that like that little bit of time spent on Wiccan Hour, kind of paging around, or as I prefer, read the hard cut, like picking up the book and reading from the book, and then creating a little list of questions. I've been finding keeping a journal is really probably the most helpful and thing that I've been able to do in all my practice. I keep mine digitally. Also, I have like a little e-ink tablet that I can write in, so I keep a lot of notes there. But I try to consolidate all my handwritten notes and all my drawings and stuff into the computer just because it helps keep it legible, but also so I can share it with people and share it with my teachers. Like, hey, am I understanding this correctly? So take time to practice outside of class and bring questions, and then think of class. I'm trying to recontextualize class as both like a learning environment, but also rehearsal time. Understanding that, and that's how I'm hoping to kind of reformat class a little bit too, so that there's time, that there's learning and practicing things, but then there's also time for us to like I said, rehearse, to get in there and do a thing. And I know that's something that is very important to me to kind of, and I think will be important in the learning process because it has helped me grow as a martial artist. Josh, it's called the e-ink tablet is called MobiScribe. they're fantastic. I hate plugging products, but I do it sometimes because I get it's just super helpful. I find that it's called MobiScribe. It's actually I have it right here because I was looking over my notes. um, it is just this little tiny notepad-sized tablet. I've had this for a few years now. This is actually their Kickstarter version. Um, so it's like a little slower than their new version, and I plan on probably picking up one of their more their newer ones. Um, uh, and what it's just a little e-ink tablet that lets me write on it, and it's pretty cool. And I like it because I like being able to handwrite stuff. I'm a big advocate of paper, as folks know who know me. I do all my art not digitally, but I like the idea of being able to take physical notes. And then it has like a little Wi-Fi chip in it, and I can and an SD card thing and a little USB, so I can upload stuff either to Dropbox or to whatever um, you need to do, or you can directly connect, etc., 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 which I find to be super helpful. That's just me. Um, Again, I think that for me, I still come from a generation where all my idea formations were always done on paper. So yeah, um, yeah. I will say as a brief tangent, I do like the size of this, and it's very portable. Um, yeah. I know Joe hates paper, um, but yeah. Uh, um, I understand the desire for paperless everything. Um, I make PDFs for Joe, web versions for Joe. I stopped. If anyone's complaining, I don't make zines anymore because Joe complained. So thanks, Joe. No, just kidding. Um, but yeah, I recommend it. Again, it makes things easier for me to share when I digitize stuff. Um, yeah. So, and also, I think another part of this is for me to say, like, uh, um, it's kind of like my approach to Tamashigiri has changed. I used to think of it as this kind of binary task that was some judgment upon myself. When and it's something Tristan has said to me for a very long time is that it's just an indicator of where you're at, man. Don't take it personally. Um, and and since I started like looking at it from a less stressful position, my cutting's gotten better. Um, um, can't catch COVID from a PDF. That's a fair statement. Um, Hold on, I'm getting this link for Justin. Um, Actually, for everyone, I think, because people seem really interested in it. Uh, uh, yeah, actually, Katie brings up a really good point. Uh, it is hard to know what we are doing, like how we are doing with our own body. I don't really have the best body awareness either, and that's something I'm really working on to kind of uh, help me improve. And I think it's okay to not directly have that self awareness right away, um, or like for that to be like a process. I have some tips based on your next question. Well, I'll just finish this thought if I remember what the thought was. The I think just the idea of doing the practice, like when I practice longsword, when I'm sometimes I know, or like for instance, like when I'm practicing kata, I know I may be doing a misstep somewhere, and I have to figure it out. But I make a note, like, is the fifth step of this kata is my foot facing forward or left, and then does it blah blah, and so I have questions that I can then bring forward. So in terms of becoming more aware of my body, I started kind of doing Pilates again, which is just doing like things that force you to focus, especially in the era of COVID brain for me, has been very, very helpful. Um, Additionally, I've really taken a step back and um, really slowed down everything I'm doing. For instance, when one of the big things that I've slowed down and really focused on is just really simple Oberhau, Unterhau. Um, and I part of the problem that I was experiencing is that because I've been doing HEMA for so long, I just assumed, oh, okay, I know how to do Oberhau now. But I was getting sloppy. I wasn't intentfully cutting the Oberhau, right? Um, and so one of the interesting things, like I think we've done this in the past few classes, where I'm like, oh, okay, everyone get into the Huech one tag, and then we do it, and yeah, I realized that um, one of the things I worked on this weekend with Tristan was just not even worrying about the cut, the perfection of the cut itself, but where are my hands? Just thinking about like this point in my hands, right? And just visualizing, just going through each one of those steps and just thinking the whole time, where are my hands? Okay, how are they? Where are my knuckles facing? Like just thinking about a very, very small part of my body and what is it doing while I'm doing that action? Now, do the action, take a deep breath, and think of, was that the best version of that action? And I found, like, oh, you know what? That Kessa, the Oberhau, wasn't great. Why wasn't it great? Well, my edge alignment, my Hasuji was not great. The sword, like, there was sword win, there was Tachikaze, but it was weak or it was in the wrong place. All right, let's try something with the hands. And this is another part that's really, again, why sometimes taking note is good, but it's more of an organic thing. For me, it's more organic, and I take larger stroke notes later. All right, I'm just going to fix my knuckles because my knuckles should kind of face where the cut's going. Okay, now I'm going to just turn my hands too far in one direction and try the cut again. All right, that didn't feel good on my wrists. It did not make Hasuji was awful. The edge alignment was awful because I got no sword music. Um, so I'm gonna dial that back and do the other way. All right, now it just hurt in the other direction, and I got wind, sword wind, but it was not good because it was like a flooping noise. All right, and just kind of calibrating, making all these like little adjustments, and like I know, um, uh, and just kind of finding it. And once you find it, it's like, oh shit, yeah, that's great, it's right there. Not hurrying back to find it again, right? Um, Kind of going back and then calibrating, looking, kind of calibrating around, and understand. All right, I'm going to do 100 right Oberhaus today, but it's all going to be a little different, a little calibrated. Once you find it, um, sorry if I'm going on too much about it. I don't want to. I don't want to mansplain Oberhau, but it's like, um, so thinking. I always begin personally. I think about the center of my hands as these 2 points in space, right? And then moving it through space. And then I think about, all right, so what are the beyond that? So this helps me with my grip. Think about how my grip is doing, and then I think about my knuckles, and then I think about my wrists, both this way, like in all directions, and and then I grow it out from there. And then I'm like, okay, well, how's my core doing? All right, am I all right? So my hand, the points are here, and once I have that point kind of cutting, now, and then it's like a little tree, it grows out. Okay, so now my point of my hands and my fingertip, my knuckles, point of my hands, knuckles, wrists, all the way to arms, and then out to the point where I'm like, okay, how am I stepping? And that's how I've come to like troubleshoot things. I hope that's helpful. I know I'm at this point. I feel like a rambling old man Haas. Um, uh, yeah, hopefully that's helpful. And I find, uh, yeah, yeah, and then also, uh, I think one of the frustrating things that at least for me, a very frustrating thing that I experience is that I won't be able to create an answer, or I'll have a guess of like, um, these three things seem kind of right-ish. This one seems the most right, but then I'll take a note and be like, "Hey Tristan, or Lara, like, how, like, this is what I came up with. How does this work?" And then then we'll talk about it and maybe go through it, and that's the rehearsal time, right? So I did the practice to find the mistakes, rehearsal time to iron them out. Yeah, does anyone have any questions about anything I've talked about so far, or any want to riff on any of the things I'm talking about now? All right. Well, it's just about 8 o'clock, so I'm going to leave because I know there's latency. I'm going to. What we got? I'm thinking. I think practicing on our own between classes is tough when we don't have a good place to do it. I agree. Location is really difficult right now. Uh, yep, indoor practice can be very limiting. I think everyone should get some type of weighted trainer. And even that can be limiting. But um, on nice days, I go to the park. I know there is a level of privilege that I am a white dude that goes to a park with swords and gets mostly left alone. Um, but I also, I encourage people to take trainers, like wooden trainers, out to the park to practice um, if you have time. And also, one of the things that when I do get to work from home, what I do love is that I have a pull-up bar and a weighted trainer, and I keep the weighted trainer by my desk. And whenever I get up for a little break, I tend to work in like deep segments. So it's like I'll work really deep for like an hour, 40 minutes to an hour, and then I need to take like a 5 minute break or something like this. I'll work for an hour and a half, take a 15-minute break. Um, I'll go just do a couple pull-ups. I'm not gonna go do a whole workout regimen, but I did a couple pull-ups, and if I do three pull-ups, it's more than doing zero. Um, um, use the weighted trainer. Actually, if he's right into Josh's question of speaking of weighted trainers, got any tips on how to use them properly? Carefully. I think that the worst thing we could do is use them improperly and hurt ourselves. I think that to a certain degree, um, um, with weighted trainers, I think one thing you could do is um, uh, work on basics very slowly. Also, I want to give certain advice, but I actually, you know what? Let me get back to you because I need to talk to some of my teachers about how better to give advice on how to use them. I don't want to give anyone bad advice. I tend to do a lot of more fluid transitions with them. Um, you know what? On Friday, as part of class, we'll do specifically weighted trainer stuff. It will be a virtual class this Friday. Um, I would say things to watch out for are the weighted trainers. Trying to treat it too, and it's dangerous territory too, right? Because you want to be able to say stop the weighted trainer when you say cut to Einhorn, but you also don't want to break your wrists. So I say start slowly, even if you could cut at full speed normally, cut slowly, right? Because you should be able to use your body to stop that in time. But doing it at full speed right away, you're not going to be, I think, your body is not quite ready for it. And really watch the wrists. It's okay to do more flowy stuff, I think, with the weighted trainer. But in doing so, make sure that you're not depriving yourself of, say, like a real common drill is start in Lugenslan, cut right Oberhau, and then transition into Nebenhut to then cut Unterhau. And I think that just make sure to finish those cuts, and Katie brings up a good point. Compensate with the forearms to try to stop the momentum, which can be bad. And I think part of it is do those things slowly and controlled, and do drill when you do drills that allow you to kind of flow with that weight. There's nothing wrong with these flow drills, but just make sure that you're completing the cut. And so it's not this, it's motions. And begin with, say, like the weighted trainer, like you have a sledgehammer, a 4-pound sledgehammer. Just practice real slow, just like we talked about going through the little part at the beginning with a certain foundation. Real slow with the Oberhau, real slow with the Oberhau, and then add in that transition. But don't do and then add in the transition, and then don't do the Unterhau right away. Just practice doing it in steps. We can do some weighted trainer stuff. I think I actually have a book of drills somewhere. There's a bunch of notes on paper, Joe, about some weighted trainer stuff. Though, to be fair, it would be easier if I had a PDF, then I could share it and also search it faster. So, you win, Joe. You win. Yeah, so I'm going to, unless there are further questions, I'm going to start wrapping it up. I just want to take a minute to thank everyone who has been, both the subscribers of Squinting Rabbit. You've been very patient with us during this time of COVID, and also people have been very busy. So, and also for all the folks who are donating to my Ko-Fi, my tip jar. For a number of reasons, I'm not getting paid from Sword Class NYC to do any of this right now, so I'm working on donations. Okay. Vim! You dare bring Vim into this? Do I have to load my Emacs, Joe? Anyway, again, in all seriousness, I wanted to thank everyone, both our Squinting Rabbit Patreons and everyone who's both donated in the past to the Ko-Fi. It means a lot to me. It is really helping. It's helping me financially right now, and it is helping a lot. Some of that money is in fact going back towards keeping all this rolling. And I love all you guys. If it wasn't for all y'all, would not be doing this right now. So I miss everybody, and I hope to see you all soon. Okay. Until next time, be safe, and feel free to reach out to me on any of the social medias. All right. Good night, everybody.